Alrighty, so I wanted to go over my changes that I made to my bleed build. They're actually very interesting, and I'm pretty happy with where the build turned out. If you were watching my last couple of streams, you kind of saw the first iteration of it, but I did make a couple of changes and have arrived on what I'm using now. We're going to take a look at some PvP clips here in a second, but I kind of want to explain the setup for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. Now, we're running a bleed build, and the kind of hallmark of the bleed build is flourish and finish. Now, the thing about this playstyle is because it's been kind of popularized now, and people have been seeing it in combat, flourish and finish is not a guaranteed ability to land. And especially with bleed stacks on them, a lot of people are going to be trying to space you and avoid it. And just on top of that, I didn't like the idea of loading all of my damage into a single ability or a single aspect of my build. If you miss flourish and finish, you're kind of left waiting to reapply Tondo stacks to go for another flourish and finish. And you can get some damage outside of flourish and finish, like with the evade attack resets, but I wanted to do more to kind of round out my build. Now, as we saw, I was running Shirking Lightning, and all of the Rune Glass gems on top of this ring that we found is buffing the damage of that Shirking Lightning. Now, Tondo, whether you hit a max range Tondo or a closer Tondo, you're doing anywhere from 8 to 1500 damage. And the other thing about it is Tondo, the bleed tick applies immediately when you use Tondo. Now, I was previously using a tier 5 gem, but the reason why I switched to a rune glass gem is because when you hit with anything, the lightning tick also applies instantly. So the Tondo bleed tick plus the dot tick from our rune glass gem plus shirking lightning adds a really ridiculous amount of damage to a lot of aspects to our build. It's almost 1,000 damage. With all this lightning damage, our shirking lightning is doing anywhere from 6 to 700 damage, and then both of those ticks from our rune glass gem and our Tondo are doing about 130 damage. So it's pretty close to adding 1,000 damage onto a Tondo, but not just a Tondo. Whether we're going for a Tondo or a evade light attack or a flourish, adding close to 1,000 damage onto all those things is a very noticeable amount of damage in PvP. And the cool thing about it is kind of throwing off opponents, which is the cool part about the build. Because it's a bleed build, people are looking for that flourish and finish, as I mentioned, which a lot of the time will leave them open to everything else on my build. A lot of the time now, I'm not even using Tondos with the goal of trying to use flourish and finish. I'm trying to proc shirking lightning to get chunky Tondos. But yeah, that's this setup. We're gonna take a look at some PvP clips here in a second, but I wanted to talk about the stats. I did land back on what I was running with the previous iteration of this build. I got a couple of questions of people asking if I was running full intelligence or if I've tried that. Because Rapier scales with intelligence with one of its abilities, whether you're doing a stat mix like this that I'm doing, or if you go full int, you end up doing roughly the same amount of damage when you're using any intelligence gem, because of the fact that it already scales with intelligence. Now, if we're running something that didn't scale with int, that's probably where you want to go for a full int build on this kind of setup. But yeah, the reason why I ended up back on this setup is because we lost some of our damage to our flourish and finish by swapping out our ring. So I wanted to retain a little bit of that burst. But like I said, we're trying to round out our build a little bit more. And then what we did to mitigate the 100 constitution, because this is very noticeable this patch. We are running 3 pieces of Shirking Fort. And then on top of that, I'm running a Thrust Amulet just to help out quite a bit. We're running almost 23% Thrust Resistance. And then on top of that, the On the Roll perk and our Last Chance here are going to stack and help out really well with our Shirking Fortification to keep us tanky. But yeah, let's go take a look at what this build looks like. The part that I forgot to mention as well is Keen Tondo on the Rapier. The crit as well, combined with the lightning damage, is what really helps round out the build. But we have a really good fight here against a bow greatsword player in medium armor. And they're going to end up zoning us out pretty hard with the bow. But we're going to see here how the fortifies plus the thrust amulet is going to help soak up a lot of this damage. I go for a claw shot there, but they land a really good stagger at the same time. And as soon as I kind of get within melee distance there, they go for a greatsword attack and then avoid our Tondo. But we land a net shot, and I pop a Stone Form just to regenerate a little bit of health. You see we put in a lot of damage, and we're able to get them to below half with the combo. We go in for a flourish and finish to try to finish them off, but they are able to avoid it. And they were kind of forced back to this zoning battle. But using either claw shot or net shot, I'm able to find my way in pretty quickly. We land a pretty juicy crit on the Tondo there. And you can see there with the Shirking Lightning how much damage it adds to pretty much any aspect of this build. Whether it's a light attack or a Tondo, you can see what I meant. Adding in almost 1,000 damage onto that light attack, there's just so much chunky damage, and we're able to finish them off there. But we end up running into them again here in this little tight area where I have a much easier time in being able to fight in melee, being that we don't have to close the distance. But I go for a Tondo, and we just space out the Calamity there. And again, we pop the Shirking Lightning, and with the light attack and the Tondo, you can see just how much damage it is. We got her down to half health twice, and she choked a potion, and we're able to still burst her through the potion with our flourish and finish. So I'm really liking where the build is sitting at now. As I mentioned, all of our damage isn't loaded into that flourish and finish, and it feels really good. Taking a look at a arena match, though, we got a pretty cool match against some greatsword users and a bow, which I think are probably going to be the toughest opponents for this setup, being that we're in that low constitution. But they're waiting for an ambush around the pillar. We open up with the evade backwards just to space them out, and then we go into a little skirmish here, but the enemy goes ahead and turns their attention to our teammates, so we try to go ahead and provide some assistance. We put in a lot of damage with our teammate there, and we almost are able to finish out a kill, but we at least force one of them onto the retreat there. And I'm going to go ahead and look for the target that I can focus on next. They have done a pretty bad job of grouping up here. You see I land a ton of damage on that Tondo and evade. I wish I would have just gone for a flourish and finish there, because I definitely could have just went and killed both of those players straight up there. But we end up getting converged on. We land the guard break with the Tondo, do a really good job of avoiding the damage and spacing ourselves out there with the evade. And we jump back in and land the light attack. Go ahead and follow up on the second target there with our bow player, who is just landing his dagger, and get a nice amount of damage in on him as well. But we're going to go ahead and focus our attention onto the last player. Also has a bleed build, but I don't believe they're fully spec'd into that damage over time, so the flourish and finish doesn't do too much damage. But you can see what I mean by the burst. That Shirking Lightning on top of that light attack, as soon as the bow player hits, is so much damage. And then we follow up with the side swipes there from our basic attack, and we're able to pretty much just burst that target from full health to 0 with the help of our teammate there. If I had a Tondo going, that would have been even more damage on top of that as well. So it's just a really cool way to add some damage to builds now. But jumping into the second round here, they seem to like to kind of hide behind the pillar there because of the bow. So we're going to put in some AoE damage to force them out. And as our teammates are kind of coming in from the other side, they all three kind of push onto my side. And I'm trying to line up a Shirking Lightning Tondo there, but we get hit with the Spear Sun and I miss. and a pretty nasty brawl opens up, but we're going to go ahead and space ourselves out with the net shot. Our teammate lands a beautiful finish with the bow, but he ends up getting jumped on over there. We do find ourselves in a 1v1 with the Spear Grazer player, and knowing that we have a healer, we're going to go for this fight. He does end up getting the fortifying perforate, but you can see even through that, we are able to burst through the potion and keep up that rapier aggression and find a really nice kill to finish out that second round there. The thing I'm trying to do a lot of the time is set up a Shrinking Lightning with my Tondo. But the thing that I'm really happy with is usually I don't even need to land one of those to put in a lot of damage. But starting out the final round here, the enemy team is definitely going to be aware of what we're trying to do, and they immediately push me this time. But we do a really good job of spacing ourselves out with the net shot and evade. And I jump onto the bow player as soon as I make my way around that pillar there. We go for a flourish and finish because I know that he's going to go for his. And being that I'm out of stamina, I go for a Stormform just to mitigate it. We land the Tondo and I'm able to put in a decent amount of aggression. We get jumped on by the Greatsword player, but you end up seeing there, I do go down, but we finally land it. The max range Tondo with the Shrinking Lightning procced. It's just so much damage to add on to that ability, and I really love using it with Tondo because it's a nice addition to have with a melee weapon. But we have a OPR here to kind of show a little bit more of the build. I was having a pretty weird bug during this OPR that I couldn't replicate, which was if I would Tondo after a flourish and finish, sometimes it would like still apply the burst, which was pretty weird. But we jump onto this musket player here, and we do a good job of closing the distance, putting in a lot of damage. I had been fighting him earlier, so I know that he likes to open up with that flourish and finish defensively. So I use mine to negate the stagger, and we're able to follow up with that aggression to find the kill. And then with that musket player in our face, we use that net shot to just disengage a little bit. But net shot is actually just an insane ability. The fact that you get an instant disengage, which is a pretty decent amount of distance, and then you can use it offensively like that to apply a ridiculous slow on somebody is kind of what makes it really busted. But we do end up closing the distance there on that player. And the other thing about Tondo that makes it so good is it slows them similar to if you land a light attack on somebody. So Tondos are what kind of allow me to open up pressure a lot of the time, because we can cancel that Tondo into an evade and then do a lot of damage. But we end up seeing a Greatsword player on a teammate here, and I try to do what I can to save them, but they end up going down to the Greatsword pressure. And then after a little skirmish, the Greatsword player is able to make some distance and disengage. But we find our way out again. We avoid that shield bash around the corner, go for a really nasty Tondo into the disengage there, land the flourish and finish on the back end, and end up putting in a lot of damage and finishing out that target pretty quickly there. But we end up seeing some more stragglers here. I jump on to the rapier player. I go for a Tondo there, which is a bad move against Riposte because we do end up getting stunned. But you see there the bug that I was talking about, where that player ends up getting the bleed burst after their flourish and finish. But we jump onto this next player. The combos are just so smooth on the blood build. I really honestly forgot how fun it is to play. You see, we end up putting in a beautiful Tondo evade flourish and finish on that second player there. And then we are into a little skirmish here. I do have a healer though, which is going to help us. But during this, you can see we land the combo and throw on that flourish and finish at the end there. And as we end up getting surrounded by quite a few players, we disengage with that net shot and use that Tondo to just halt the movement a little bit. I do have a healer, but we can easily get bursted if we get caught in a combo, so I don't want to overextend here. So playing a little bit patient and just kind of reassessing the situation. But it seems like a little bit of the players have dispersed, So we jump on to the fireside player, land the Tondo there to slow the movement, jump in with the evade to put in a lot of damage. And you can see we go for we missed the first part of the flourish, but we turn around and land the second part, and we were able to burst the bleed there and find the kill on that player. And then I jump on to the last retreating bow player as he manages to get away with the match end. But yeah, the build is feeling really good. I'm going to hopefully be getting some more time with it here, and then hopefully have a build video up for it soon. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.